72 jabs, but 11 in Europe. President Trump just signed that gap out of existence with Bobby Kennedy standing right behind him. And look at the White House graphic, a European baby, 11 syringes, an American baby buried. 6 times the shots, and Trump said out loud what your pediatrician sneered at you for simply asking. Sneered at my family for asking. Hepatitis B, right, on day 1 of a newborn's life? No thank you. Why? That was the American standard, and President Trump just ended it effective immediately. 11 core vaccines, Hep B, COVID, and flu, no longer recommended for all children. Big Pharma built 40 years of revenue on that schedule and called you a conspiracy theorist for noticing. So coming up, I'm rolling Trump's own words describing a dose the size of a bottle of soda poured into a little child's body, and Stephen Miller's line about 70 to 90 shots, plus the Republican senator who ran the cameras to call this order wrong. Now, if you've ever had to deal with these vaccine schedules, if you're a parent with young children and you try to spread it out, you know exactly how important this message is. You see, President Trump talking about a newborn's delicate body, taking a dose the size of a soda bottle. 5 separate visits in year 1, and that is the part that everybody's skipping past. Trump wants the MMR split into 3 single doses given at separate times the way Japan does it. Not banned, spaced. And watch how fast the industry is already losing its mind over just spacing. The White House posting this, that for too long America recommended more childhood vaccines than any peer nation. No longer. President Trump recognizes the gold standard childhood vaccine recommendation, maximizing parental choice and aligning immunizations with science and best practices from peer-developed nations. Delivering gold standard childhood vaccine recommendations for Americans. The White House putting the numbers side by side, 11 injections in Europe, 72 here. Another slide from the White House. The order provides recommendations that give parents more information and options when making immunization decisions for their children. European country, 11. United States, 72. They attached a fact sheet along with it. And Caroline Leavitt calls it a big day for Maha moms, and she lists what Secretary Kennedy announced alongside the order. President Trump signed the executive order recognizing gold standard childhood vaccine recommendations that maximize parental choice over vaccinations for the children. Kennedy announced 2 landmark actions to modernize federal oversight of food ingredients and establish a stronger scientific foundation for nutritional policy. Eric Darty says Big Pharma is panicking, and the Senate Health Chairman Bill Cassidy, who is a doctor, is already calling the order wrong. Yeah, expect major smears against RFK, kicking it into overdrive. They will not like this at all.
The president signed an executive order reducing the number of recommended childhood vaccines. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. drove the move.
We are comparing health outcomes in vaccinated versus unvaccinated children. Vaccines administered during pregnancy and outcomes ranging from allergies to autoimmune disease to autism and other neurodevelopmental disorders.
Now, Kennedy says there's no conclusion whether vaccines contribute to health problems. Senate Health Committee Chairman Bill Cassidy is a doctor. He called the order, quote, wrong. He believes this makes people more hesitant to get vaccines. Brett?
More on this.
Oh, RFK, right? Always contributing to vaccine hesitancy, they say. NIH Director Jay Potticherry responds. He says a dozen scientific teams are now hunting the cause of autism, no holds barred.
Autism. This is why at the NIH we funded science at the request of the president, at the request of Secretary Kennedy, to try to identify the cause. We funded a dozen or more major scientific teams to look at the question with no holds barred about what the answer is going to be. It's very likely to be something complicated because autism shows up as lots of different things. You have a lot of some very, very severe cases and some much less severe. The biology is going to be complicated, but now we're allowed to have the answer to that question. That's one thing. The other thing it did is that it restored parental autonomy over decision making regarding what happens with their kids. We're going to provide the very best evidence, and now we're aligning the vaccine recommendations more aligned with what happens in Europe. There's no reason or science that says that the European recommendations are worse than our recommendations, what our recommendations have been. And so I think what the key thing is, let's tell parents what best evidence we have, and let parents have a lot of autonomy over those decisions.
All right, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, thanks so much for being with us here today.
Let parents have autonomy over the decisions. Sounds like a pretty common sense thing. Now, Stephen Miller lays out the second half of the order at the Resolute desk. Why are all the shots bundled at all?
This order does two fundamental, incredibly important things. First is we get off of this ridiculous path of having our children get 70 to 90 shots. That is wantonly excessive. Remember, each and every one of these shots produces a profound immunological response. So across any large population, if you give a kid shot after shot after shot, you're going to have vaccine injuries. You're going to have immunological issues. You're going to have potentially neurological issues. Secondly, and so important to you, Mr. President, is the unbundling of the shot. Why do you need to have these shots bundled into these packages? Why can't you split it into 5 visits and give this young body, if a parent wants to do a vaccine, 1 shot at a time? Why is it that in Japan you can get a separate measles shot, a separate mumps shot, a separate rubella shot, but in America it has to all be packaged together? This is a courageous action, Mr. President. This is an action that ensures the dignity of patients, the dignity of parents. It restores choice. It says we're going to let the parent and the doctor make a sound medical decision.
The parent and the doctor. Inside the Oval, the president signs the order. Trump's reaction, it's a big one.
This is your executive order on establishing gold standard vaccine recommendations, sir. As previous speakers have indicated, this is going to establish essentially a new vaccine schedule that is fully informed by the research and data that we have from HHS and NIH and other aspects of the government. It also takes a very hard line on some of the more paternalistic issues that we've been talking about here, sir, in terms of infringing on parents' religious liberty, or really just parents' ability to make decisions for their children. So as Heidi said, this is a very big deal. We're not waiting for anyone else to take action, as you do so often, sir. We're just going ahead and doing the right thing based on all of the best available research to ensure that America's parents and children are being as best protected by the federal government as they can be.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Love the sound of that Sharpie hitting the paper.
Okay. That's a big one in my book.
That's a big one in my book too, sir. President Trump, in his own words on the 72 jabs, he goes straight at the hepatitis B shot given to newborns. Trump says the U.S. was requiring 72 jabs. Hepatitis B shouldn't be given until they're 14 or 15 years old, after saying infants and newborns were getting it early.
In many cases, we were requiring 72 jabs for our beautiful, healthy, lovely, delicate little children, including giving the hepatitis B shot to infants and newborns on top of many other vaccinations. The hepatitis B shouldn't be given until they're 14 or 15 years old.
Trump announces the gold standard recommendations.
Effective immediately, my administration is recognizing gold standard childhood vaccine recommendations for only 11 core vaccinations against the most serious and dangerous diseases, along with the MMR, which hopefully will be split up. You have the MMR, we want it in 3 separate vaccinations, given at separate times. Together, there could be a possibility they're quite lethal, and separately, it looks like they are not at all lethal, but just very effective. So the MMR, we want to have separate visits, separate times. The vaccine being broken into 3 separate single doses, and vaccines being administered in separate.
Trump says children should have 5 separate visits for his vaccines instead of getting them all in a day.
And I saw this early on, and I've seen proof of it, where they have a vaccination thing, looks like the size of a bottle of soda, poured into a little child's body. And bad things happen in many cases, in too many cases, because this is an explosion, this is an epidemic. So at year one, you should have 5 separate visits for vaccines rather than giving them all in the same day. Very importantly, vaccinations for hepatitis B, COVID-19, and influenza, among others, are no longer recommended for all children.
The order goes further, directs the Attorney General to challenge states over religious or medical vaccine exemptions.
In addition, this executive order directs the Attorney General to advance legal challenges against states that violate children's rights to religious or medical vaccination exemptions, for the exemptions. Other countries with high vaccination rates without mandates for school. Now, what we do is, other countries have very high vaccination rates, and they have not had, and they don't have, it's without mandates for school. Parents can still choose to give their children all of the vaccinations if they wish. It's up to the parents. We're making recommendations that are strong, but it's up to the parents if they wish.
Yeah, see, the parents can still do it. If you want to just dump that whole soda bottle of Vax juice into your kid, you can still do it. No one's going to stop you. They're just saying, maybe slow it down a little bit, right? And then Trump says today's autism rates are part of an epidemic.
Decades ago, children received only a small fraction of the vaccines required today. In those times, people were much healthier, and of course, the high rates of autism now observed did not exist. So there's a reason for such epidemic rates of autism. And we're going to bring it back to much closer to where it was. Well, we do not know exactly what the cause is with respect to autism. It is essential to our research efforts that we have the very best vaccine recommendations in the entire world. So we're reducing them. We're changing it to visits over a period of a year and a half. So they get 20% of what they would have gotten in one big shot. A big shot like the size of a large glass of something. This announcement is a major victory for parents' rights, for religious and constitutional rights, and for the gold standard science.
Gold standard, baby. The rollout begins. Trump credits RFK Jr.
Today, we're proud to officially announce the United States of America's gold standard childhood vaccination recommendations, and that has to do with many subjects, but including autism in particular. I want to thank the man who has done more than perhaps anyone else to bring about this real revolution, Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., my friend.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Then he said the U.S. had been requiring 72 jabs and argued shouldn't be given until they're 14 or 15. We did that one. Effective immediately, only 11 core vaccinations should be split up. MMR, they could be potentially or quite lethal, he says. Then he said separate doses. So, quote, together there could be possibly quite lethal. That's the President of the United States on the bundled MMR from behind the Resolute desk. And Bill Cassidy, a doctor, a Republican senator, ran straight to the camera to call that order wrong. Wrong to give a mother the choice. Yeah, ask yourself whose customer he's protecting, because it sure isn't the kid on the table. So name one thing that got taken away from you today. Go ahead. Parents can still get every single shot on that list. Insurance still covers it. Nobody banned anything. All President Trump did was hand the decision back to the people who love the child and directed the Attorney General to go after states that shred religious and medical exemptions. That's the whole extremism. Now brace yourselves, because the smear campaign against Bobby Kennedy starts tonight, funded by the same networks whose ad breaks are wall-to-wall drug commercials. Don't flinch, and share this with the mom who got laughed out of the pediatrician's office for asking a question. She was right. And tell me below if you were one of them, because I was. You see, this fight moves fast now, and I need you where they can't reach in and cut the wire. Bhattacharya's dozen research teams are digging into the autism question with no holds barred.